Hey, KU fans, welcome back to KU Sports Extra. Really close to March. You know what that means?
Madness.
Spring football.
Oh.
Sorry to bring you down. No, it does mean March Madness.
They better hire their coaches in a hurry because spring football is right around the corner, and they have lost 5 coaches, which means they have 4 coaches coming back, and there will be more new coaches than returning assistant coaches.
Let's start with the bad news then. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Losing Calvin Thibodeau is bad news. A guy had a great reputation as an extremely hard worker, a good coach of defensive linemen. It's going to be hard to replace him. Why else would Bob Stoops want him?
Sure.
Other than he coached him and knows him well. He doesn't have to settle.
No,
Bob Stoops.
no.
He can have his choice of any number of great candidates. He chose Calvin Thibodeau. So good news that David Beatty knows how to put together a staff. Bad news that they're all leaving.
Oh, my goodness. And it is. I mean, people have called it a perfect storm. It's more of an imperfect storm because it's just all these guys are leaving for jobs that I think had to be the job that was offered or they would have stayed. I think Kubiak stays if not for the Broncos opening. I think Thibodeau stays if not for Oklahoma. I don't think he would have gone to Illinois, for instance. So Kane stays if someone else just offers him another linebacker's job,
Right.
but he gets offered the defensive coordinator job. It just
I'll put this into 2 groups.
Yeah.
There are 5 of them. I'll put the group of 3 and the group of 2. The group of 2 is that David Beatty, out of his 9 assistant coaches, missed on 2 of them because Clint Kubiak, in order to be a good hire, would have had to stay and develop as a coach,
Right.
because he was inexperienced, and deepen his roots as a recruiter. Well, he only stayed 1 year and went to coach for his father, which you had to foresee that as a risk all along.
Who's his father coach?
He coaches the Super Bowl champion team that has orange and blue uniforms.
I forgot about those guys. Yeah. It's been at least 10 minutes since I thought about it.
Right. Gary Kubiak, who visited KU when John Hadel was an assistant coach, and the snow was so deep they couldn't open the door to the motel room door, and he said, you know what?
I'm out of
This
here.
isn't for me.
I'm going to A&M.
But and the other one in that group would be Gary Hyman, the special teams coach, who was demoted, which tells you that Beatty didn't think he was that good at his job, so that was not a good hire. And he's now at Indiana State in Terre Haute, Indiana. I have stayed in Terre Haute on my drive across the country a couple times. Good luck, Gary. Good guy, Gary Hyman.
Well, if that city is lacking energy, they got their guy.
They got their energy. And then you have the group of 3, which they were good coaches, good recruiters. That's why they were rated. Kevin Kane gets a promotion to defensive coordinator at Northern Illinois, where he had come from, to join Beatty's staff. So tough to keep him when he gets a promotion like that.
Right.
Then you've got Calvin Thibodeau. We've discussed what a good coach he was. Tough when Bob Stoops raised you. It's going to be hard to keep you. And Reggie Mitchell, of course, the longtime running backs and multi-time Kansas assistant coach, who's a naturally good recruiter. That's a tough loss as well. There's no other way to look at that.
Yeah, and he goes to Arkansas, which you can't hardly blame him for doing that.
Arkansas, there's so much money in Arkansas that if you can recruit talented high school players, then some of those people with money are just going to want to be your buddy.
Yeah.
And they're going to pick up every tab. And
let me see if you agree with this. And I agree with what you said. I like the group of 3 and the group of 2. I agree with all that. You can't quite call this a disaster at all until you find out who replaces these guys. Correct?
I think Bradford's an excellent coach.
Right.
And
He replaces Kane.
Right.
Would you call it an upgrade?
Probably because of his experience as a coach and then a downgrade recruiting-wise.
That's
because
probably true,
Kane
yeah.
had that Kansas City area. But
Right.
Kane is a guy who's going to develop, and become a great coach, I think.
And then Jason Phillips comes in to replace Clint Kubiak. He was here already. They were going to work together. But upgrade, right?
Upgrade.
So if Beatty's able to do it at those other 3 positions, and you got to think at least at one of them he'll be able to. He should be able to find a better special teams coach than Hyman.
Correct.
If he's able to bring in quality guys at least to the same level as Reggie Mitchell and Calvin Thibodeau.
That'll be hard, though.
Or better, then yeah. But even that, it's kind of like recruiting, right? You won't know until a year, 2, 3 years down the road.
Right, but also when you make a coaching change and the new coach has different techniques and stuff, that's a step back.
Well, the biggest reason I think it's bad news is that spring football starts in a little over a week, and these guys, 3 of these positions are open right now.
Right.
That means they don't know who those guys are that are going to be coaching those positions. That also means those guys, whoever they are and wherever they are, they don't know Beatty's philosophies, the offensive scheme, the defensive scheme. They don't know what they're coming in to coach either. So that's the tricky part. You only get 15 spring practices, and if you have to use 5, maybe even half of them to get the new coaches up to speed, then you wasted a little bit of time. Not as critical as August. August is where you get most of your job done anyway. But I think that'll hurt them a little bit too, as far as just the timing.
And you have both coordinators back, so at least that's
good news. Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we'll flip to the good news after the bad news there. The good news is KU basketball, period. I mean, you can just start right there, stop right there. I mean,
imagine that. We have a bad news football item and a good news basketball
so weird.
item.
This is like a bizarro. No, it's not at all. But the reason I think KU good news, the KU basketball is good news, is they're just so freaking balanced right now. Offensively, they're balanced within the lineup. Who's scoring? It can be a different guy every night. We saw that all the way back to Oklahoma when Devontae Graham had the huge night, and then really hasn't done a whole lot since then.
Sheldon had the huge night against Kentucky. Offensively has not done much at all since then. Right.
Mason has gotten going again. Perry Ellis has been consistent all year on the offensive end. So I think that's huge. But even in terms of guys in balance with bench and starters and offense and defense, I think this team's really rounding into its own.
Well, yeah, and he paired the rotation basically to 7 men.
Right.
There's still an 8 and a 9 in there, maybe even a 10, I don't know. But, yeah, there are still maybe it's 8 men now that Svi is really more part of it, and then Bragg and Diallo would be 9 and 10.
Yeah. But otherwise, that in itself is balanced because everybody knows their role, and as you've read and heard and probably talked about a ton, Landon Lucas gets some credit for that. I mean, he really solidified this whole thing, filling that role where he took care of business at that 5 spot. It allowed everybody else to fall in. But I think they've just been so balanced, and I think that's why they've been able to rip off this many wins in a row, and they're heading into March with a full head of steam. And, I mean, they look as good as anybody in the country right now.
Oh, there's no question they do, and if they beat Texas Tech, they'll certainly be ranked number 1 in the country next week. Because Villanova lost at Xavier. And I'm sure Xavier was favored. I didn't happen to look at that. But Xavier's one of the top 5 teams in the country is Villanova.
The real-time number 1 seeds, bracketology type stuff, right after Xavier beat Villanova had KU and Oklahoma as 1 seeds and Xavier and Villanova as 1 seeds.
Wow.
Really cool. If it ended that way,
2 Big East and 2, wow.
That would be really cool. And I know you said this a couple of weeks ago, and if you guys have not seen Xavier play, go watch YouTube channels, find a replay, DVR an upcoming game, find a way, because this team is really, really talented, and you're going to want to know about them in your bracket before you just laugh them off as not a contender. They're legit. They have some serious talent on that team, and they're capable of beating anybody, no question about it.
Oh, definitely.
But
they beat Marquette twice.
Yeah, I mean, that just doesn't happen every year. So, all right, well, let's jump into Breakdown Street and talk about the next 2 games for KU. They go home against Texas Tech this Saturday, which a little bit tougher than it seemed maybe 2-3 weeks ago, because Texas Tech is pretty hot right now.
No question.
As hot as anybody else in the Big 12, certainly.
Right, and this pits the 2 leading candidates for Big 12 Coach of the Year. Not that it's a coaching matchup. The players will be the matchups, but it's interesting in that regard because Tubby Smith has really turned things around in Lubbock, and Bill Self has turned his team around when it was looking not that good about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
What a turnaround job Bill Self has done in Lawrence.
Well, it's true, though.
It is. No, it is.
2 different types of turnarounds.
You don't hear that every day.
Yeah, when you're gunning for the 12th consecutive league title.
That is true.
The turnaround.
In Lubbock earlier this year, KU beat Texas Tech by 10. It was just a few days, or a little more than a few days, but the same week as the triple overtime victory over Oklahoma. At the time, I thought KU responded pretty well to that. They especially going on the road, that would have been tough. But they played a pretty clean game at Texas Tech. They didn't really ever threaten to lose that game, or Tech didn't threaten to win. But Tech wasn't the same team that they are now.
But Tech, you could tell, had a lot of athleticism.
Absolutely.
They were quick getting to the paint. Kansas had a little trouble defending them, keeping them from penetrating. Did a great job on Smith, who's a good player.
Yeah.
But they do have a lot of weapons, and Tubby's got them playing great. It could be a good game.
Well, their effort is off the charts right now. I think Self said it at his press conference this week. They're playing with confidence, and that when you're that confident in your results and your team and how everything's clicking, that by itself makes you bring better effort. So Tech will come in here ready to go, no question about it. And then Monday night, KU goes to Texas, a big game, no doubt about it. Huge for Texas, but big for KU and could help them clinch outright if they win both of them. Texas, I really like that game, and I know you've had kind of KU losing that game for a while. Still going to stick with that or no?
I'm going to stick with it, yeah, just because I don't think it'd be a devastating loss for Kansas.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with not finishing the season on a 10-game or 11-game streak or whatever to make it. If they win all three of the remainder, it'd be 11 in a row. Team that should be really, really fired up to play Kansas. Home court advantage, even though it's not a great basketball environment, It's not bad.
Yeah. Do you believe in the the idea that Texas, because they played well here, will want to emulate exactly what they did in that first half here, or have things changed too much between the last time Texas was in Lawrence, and will it be a different game? Ridley's back for one.
Texas, that's one difference. So no, it would be a different game.
Yeah. So you got them 1-1 this week?
Yes.
I think I got them 2-0. I think they go win that Texas game, and the reason I think they do is because I just think they're so hot. I think they're just locked in, and I think that Texas game, whether it's because it's Shaka Smart or whether it's because it's Texas, it has that vibe to it that it's a big game, even if it doesn't mean a ton in the standings or whatever. I think these guys have shown that they don't mind getting up for those big games. Kentucky, Oklahoma, I feel like this will be one that they'll elevate, and especially those four guys in the starting lineup. Lucas is just so even keel. I think he brings what he brings every night. I don't think he cares who the opponent is. I think
most likely CEO on the roster.
There you go. Yeah,
the guy's just a really sharp button-up guy.
Most likely CEO. All right. Well, give me the primetime pick. Who's going to play well in one of these games or both of these games coming up for KU? I got one, but I want to hear yours first.
I'll go with Texas Tech. I'm going to say it's going to be Carlton Bragg. I just think that here's a chance for him to play. I think maybe he'll get in there fairly early, and if he has a good week of practice, and such a good shooter, and they'll have kind of a hard matchup for Texas Tech. So I'm going to, maybe it's wishful thinking because I'd like to see him have a good game because his confidence seems a little bit shaken.
It's down for sure. Yeah. So, it could be a situation where he gets good minutes and gets out of the funk or doesn't see the floor at all. Correct?
It's possible, yeah. If it's a tight game all the way.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, I'm going to go with Landon Lucas. We talked about him a minute ago, and I know that's not really a bold pick right now, but the reason I'm going with Lucas is two. Number one, I think in that first Texas Tech game, he only played 16 minutes, had 5 boards and two rebounds. They were still, or 5 points and 2 rebounds. They were still trying to figure out that rotation. That was really before he kind of solidified things. So I would look for him to be a big, big factor in that game for Tech. And then against Texas, you've heard Bill Self say it all year. He's our strongest post defender. He's our best defender of the other team's big man. Well, there's not a bigger man than Cameron Ridley. He will be asked to lean on him when they play Texas a lot. So I like Lucas to play very well in both games and to continue really what he's been doing the last few weeks.
He's a great story.
He is a great story. And it's weird because in some ways it kind of happened like this last year too. He ended up starting at the end of the year. He ended up as their starter in the tournament. It was a little more quiet though because there were other distractions. You were still talking about Cliff Alexander, those type of things. But it was sort of the same progression. He didn't play as high of a level. He's way better now than he was at any point last year.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the same progression, and it makes you wonder.
And you mentioned
what about next year?
Well, next year, he'll get better because he's smart and he knows how to improve.
Right.
But next year, you look at the big man they recruited. You're going to pronounce the name for me.
Oh, yeah, Azubuike.
Yeah.
I'll just start with that.
All right, Azubuike.
Azubuike.
Yeah, who's a physically mature and basketball mature big man.
Right. Yeah, and he's the Cliff Alexander that everybody wanted to see.
Right. And he's taller by 3 inches.
Right.
Then you have, or 2 inches, then you have Carlton Bragg and Sheck Diallo.
Possibly, right.
Quite possibly, yeah. If they come back, they could both surpass Lucas.
Yeah, easily. Just on pure talent, right.
But Lucas still will be in that rotation, and he'll still have value, and he'll still be a positive force.
He's going to make it hard for you to pass him, is I think what it comes
Right.
down to. He keeps improving. He keeps, adding subtleties to his game that make him hard to take off the floor, and that's especially true for a coach like Bill Self, who values that stuff maybe as much as any coach out there.
Right.
All right, well, good stuff. We got a couple exciting KU games. Obviously, they're right there on the cusp of number 12. Be dead honest. Did you think before the season began that they'd win 12, get number 12? You probably did.
I did before the season began, but about 5 weeks ago,
Right.
I didn't think they'd make the tournament. Just
Wow.
kidding. Just kidding.
No, I agree with you. I remember when they started 5-3 in conference play, we had that conversation, and I remember looking even then, even though there were a lot of games left, you kind of looked at what was ahead, and I remember thinking, if they don't win this thing, it'll be because Oklahoma blew it. And I don't know if Oklahoma did blow it, but losing in Manhattan didn't help things at all, and then they lost.
Kansas won it.
Right. Yeah, I
definitely.
agree with that. But
and Oklahoma faded. Definitely.
Oklahoma lost in Manhattan, and Oklahoma lost at Texas Tech, 2 places KU won.
Right.
That's right there, your difference. So you're right. Both teams, one faded, one won it. So let's finish this thing off with the most obnoxious man in sports this week. Who you got?
I have Rob Gronkowski of the Patriots.
Gronk!
Yeah, Gronk. Didn't show a lot of maturity, a lot of respect.
Wait, just this week? Or like his whole life?
No, just this week.
What a...
on a cruise ship and offered $10,000 for a couple that was on the cruise ship to have sex, quote, in front of everybody.
$10,000.
Yeah.
First of all, that's not very much money when you're making what he makes.
Well, there's that. And
what
then,
else is there?
Well, here's what else there is. There's certain things that should happen in the privacy of one's own bedroom, and nobody should be trying to encourage
right.
otherwise on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Unless it's some kind of swingers cruise ship.
I don't think it was. I think it was the Gronk cruise. I think he was the sponsor. I think it was his show. I think he ran the party. I think he was up there with his shirt off, spinning around his head, doing what Gronk does. And I think the point that people are making about this, and I'd like to hear your take, because I agree that's obnoxious and beyond obnoxious. But there's a lot of people saying right now, well, this is Gronk, and this is he gets a pass in this thing because people are saying it's Gronk being Gronk. Can you imagine if Cam Newton had done this?
Yeah,
I mean,
great point.
And you don't want to play race into it, and you can't help it. That's probably a factor for people that bring this up as a debate, and I think it's a valid question. But
yeah, Gronk being Gronk, that's like
that doesn't fly.
And we don't want to get political, but can you imagine if John Kasich had been saying all the things that Donald Trump has been saying? Would people just say, well, that's just Kasich being Kasich?
Right. No, not at all.
No.
So Trump's getting a pass, Gronk's getting a pass. If you could morph those two into one person, it would be the scariest human alive, I think. All right, let's...
Putin would be sweating.
Yeah, big time. There's no doubt about it. All right, my most obnoxious man in sports, or person in sports, or people in sports, as the case is, group of coaches at the University of Tennessee who got together in a panel and had a joint press conference to announce that I'm good, thanks. To announce
pass me those pretzels.
What a great place Tennessee is. It's a safe environment. It's a wonderful place to have your child go to school. Here's the thing. Number one, if you have to have a panel of coaches to come out and say that at a joint press conference, isn't there something there? Doesn't that suggest otherwise? You see KU's coaches getting together saying, Lawrence is a good place.
Yeah, Lawrence is safe.
Yeah, no, you don't see that. And number two, never mind all these other lawsuits and legal issues and all these things that are causing problems at Tennessee right now, including an alleged sexual assault type of conduct thing by a football player where the football coach, Butch Jones, who was on that panel, allegedly said to one of the players who tried to aid this young woman who accused these football players of this misconduct, the coach said to the player that helped the woman, "You're a traitor to your team." Something like that. So this is a guy who sits on this panel and says Tennessee's a great place, and then a couple of days later he's outed for saying this to a player that tried to help a woman who was had some sort of assault against her. I mean, that's
well,
just
if that's
yeah.
proven that he said that to the player,
Fired.
Not only should he not be on the panel, he clearly should be fired and never hired by another university.
Again. Exactly right. So, yeah, I mean, it's just it was odd. It struck me as odd in the first place when they sat up there and passed the mic around and talked about how great Tennessee is. It sort of reeked of a cover-up of, trying to brush things under the rug or whatever. But then a couple of days later to have that happen and one of the guys sitting on that panel, that's probably not even obnoxious. That's just brutal.
That's sad.
Yeah. So, all right, finish it off. Some sort of KU note to end it so we don't end it with that brutal note. What do you think? KU, it's almost March. The Big 12 tournament's right around the corner. Obviously, they're on the door of 12 in a row. But what's ahead for this team? We'll have plenty in the weeks to come. But you feeling a run for these guys?
Yeah, I'm feeling a run. And I think that the one word that makes me feel the run is experience.
Yeah.
And then if they make it all the way to the Final Four, win the national title, I think Bill Self has to do the right thing and let David Beatty borrow 3 of his assistant coaches to coach the spring game if he hasn't filled out his staff by then.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Who would you think Beatty would take?
I think he would take
Norm.
Norm, certainly, because his intensity is beyond football coach level.
Coach Q.
Coach Q, because
be a player coach.
Yeah, because he's in such great shape, he could be a player coach. And then there's Jarence, who could play on the line and coach the line as well.
There you go. I like
the defensive line.
I like that. There you
go.
There's
a defensive line.
There's
coach.
your Thibodeau replacement. No problem. I like it. I agree. I think a run's coming. I think this team not only is experienced, but I think this team is hungry. I think they're fed up with what's happened the last couple of weeks. Last couple of years. They're fine with what's happened the last couple of weeks. And on a final note, I looked at bracketology just Thursday, and it had KU as the number 1 overall seed. Do you know who was in the 8-9 game?
Wichita State?
Wichita State.
See, Wichita State, when you look at them when they're healthy, they're 3-4 in games where they had a key player injured.
Yeah.
I think Wichita State's going to get better than an 8 seed. I definitely think they get better than an 8 seed.
I don't think KU would like to see them as an 8 or 9. And they'd probably win, but I don't think they'd want it.
Yeah.
That'd be too much.
I think it'd be an injustice to Wichita State.
That too.
But I would like to cover that game. That would be a very exciting game.
All the more reason to have it done. All right, well, thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra. Next time we see you, it will be March, and I hope you will be ready, whether that's for this guy or basketball. It's up to you. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra.